Go ahead, buddy.
Good evening and welcome to Explorers Seekers of the Truth, Episode 6. Tonight's show, I am
7.
joined by my friend, Lesson Kavich. How are you doing, my friend?
I am doing very well, my friend. How are you?
Good.
That's good. And to clarify, this is episode 7. It was because we had that lapse in notes. It is episode 7, I think.
Okay.
It's the new
6,
episode.
7.
Whatever.
We were supposed to be on number 13 next week, but we're not. So
yeah. Hey, stuff happens, I guess. But all right, let's get back on track here. Thank you for the kind introduction, my friend. And what do we got going on here? Oh, yeah, just to remind everybody, you could reach us via the instant feedback that the Be Live features, and put the little logo up there. Anything you comment under our show preview on Facebook will populate in Be Live, and we could talk to each other live. You could also get in touch with us on Twitter at Explorers Group, on Facebook, facebook.com/Explorers, which I think I have that link here. Yep, we have our website, www.explorersgroup.com. There's Facebook, facebook.com/Explorers, and Twitter at Explorers Group. Oh, I missed an S. It's Explorers Group. All right. Back to you. Do you want to introduce the featured cryptid for this evening? Chad? Did I lose you again?
Well, tonight we're going to be covering a few cryptids. We've discussed a few of these monsters in our past shows, so tonight we're going to cover a few more lake monsters.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't like to cover the famous Loch Ness and Champ. We like to talk about the lesser-known creatures of the not-so-deep.
Mm-hmm.
So tonight is our follow-up to our first lake monster episode, which you can find on our YouTube and on our website, or actually just on our YouTube. I don't think we covered those on our website.
Mm-hmm.
So Les, take it away.
Yeah, we like to talk about the lesser-known creatures because there isn't really there's enough information out there about the bigger lake monsters like Loch Ness Monster, like Chad had stated, and Champ in the United States and stuff like that. But we like to give credit to those lesser-known cousins, if you will. So the Explorers are a lot like these creatures where we aren't the big names in the industry, and we don't have a network to bankroll on the shows and what our shows and adventures and whatnot. So, we're kind of like them. We're there, but we're not the ones in your face. So where are we going tonight, buddy?
Well, tonight we're going to head to the Highlands of Scotland, but we will not be visiting Loch Ness. Instead, we will be stopping off at Loch Auk, and then we'll be heading to Loch Loki, or Lockie. My Gaelic and all is not the greatest, folks.
It's the Loch Loki lad.
Yeah. So, unlike our first Lake Monsters episode, we actually looked up stats and figures on how deep the lakes are, where they're located. So tonight we're going to share a little bit of that. Mm-hmm. Loch Auk is a freshwater loch. It's about 4 miles long. It's about 0.6 of a mile wide, 154-foot depth, and a surface elevation of 106 foot.
Sizable. 4 miles.
Pretty decent.
That's decent, yeah. Yeah, so Loch Auk, if that's how you pronounce it, or Oich, whatever, like Chad said, my Gaelic's not too strong. It is a freshwater loch in the Highlands of Scotland, which forms part of the Caledonian Canal, if I pronounce that right, of which it is the highest point. So this narrow loch lies between Loch Ness and Loch Lochy, which is the other destination we're going to be talking about in the Great Glen. And it's fed by the River Garry from Loch Garry from the west and feeds the River Auk from the north end. So the Lagan Lochs separate it from Loch Lochy. But Loch Auk's wildlife is rich with a wide variety of fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals, and some other stuff.
Yes, every autumn the Atlantic salmon migrate from the sea into the loch, into Auk, into Lochie, and into Ness, and that's where they spawn. And the spawnlings, the fingerlings, stay there for about around 2 years. When they're about 8 inches, they migrate back to the sea, where they'll rapidly grow from 8 to 37 pounds. After about 2 years. Now, this loch, Thomas Telford artificially raised the level of the loch by many feet to provide a navigational channel for the Caledonian Canal system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting how humans take part in changing what Mother Nature had already originated. But this beastie that we're going to be talking about rears its ugly head and is said to be a notorious child killer. Oddly enough, it is often referred to as wee Aukie. That's not really a name that I would think to be synonymous with monster, but I didn't name it. Now, Loch Auk is a narrow stretch of fresh water, like we said before, and like most lakes in the region, is said to harbor a monster of immense proportions, often described as an equine horse or dog-headed serpent with 2 humps, black skin, and a snake-like neck. This creature is also reputed to have a flowing horse-like mane. So these traits seem more in line with the ancient legends of like Kelpies than with traditional plesiosaur-like dinosaur lake monsters. Like Loch Ness, the Loch Ness monster is reported to be more of like the plesiosaur, more prehistoric dinosaur looking, whereas wee Aki is more of almost like a science fiction-esque looking creature, if you will. But the sightings of this animal date back to the 19th century, but it wasn't until the beginning of the 20th century that the creature gained its notorious reputation. The bizarre event that resulted in this creature being labeled a child killer occurred when the animal allegedly drowned an inquisitive youngster who, according to legend, managed to climb onto the creature's back while near the shoreline. After the courageous and foolhardy child scaled the presumably inert monster's spine, it shot out into the lake and submerged, taking the terrified adolescent with it. Tragically, the anonymous youth was never seen alive again, but whether this interpret youngster was trying to hitch a ride or merely mistook the moist hump back of this creature for a large rock may never be known. One can only assume that the beast was slumbering when the child stumbled across it.
Yeah, that tale has all the classic earmarks of a campfire story told to warn kids away from a dangerous body of water. But I guess one can't completely discount, the possibility that it represents probably one of the only or few reports of an accidental death associated with a lake monster. I mean, you really don't hear much on lake monsters actually caught in, areas where these things are, said to have lived for, hundreds to thousands of years.
Right.
You don't hear a lot of stories. Now, there was a confirmed sighting in August of 1936. The guy who actually saw it. Now, this is the kind of interesting thing about a lot of the Scottishers, if you want to say, loch monster, lake monster. The gentleman who saw it was an alderman. Mm-hmm. What an alderman is for Americans is basically like your city council, borough council in England and in Scotland. His last name was Richards. He was boating with his son on the Lagan end of the Loch Auk when a bizarre blackish beast rose up from the depths, probably less than 10 foot away from their vessel. And he describes it as having 2 humps coiled like a snake. Moments later, the humps were followed by the head, which he claimed resembled that of a dog. He said that the humps were about 3 foot in height and about 3 foot apart. Now, in 1961, there was a monster in the dark waters in the loch.
Right.
They were trying to do something similar to the surgeon's photo. So this is kind of
not to interrupt, but the surgeon's photo that Chad's talking about, if some people, if any of you do not know, is one of the most widely recognized hoaxed photographs of the supposed Loch Ness monster. It was actually a a child's toy submarine that they attached a Nessie-looking head to and put it in the water, and they took a picture of it with the camera, and it gained worldwide attention, but it was a very, very simple hoax. So I'm sorry, and do me one favor. I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm looking at you on the screen. You look like a floating head. Can you turn your camera down towards you a little bit more, because your head is barely in screen? There you go. Sit up, buddy. That's it. Up to attention. I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish your.
I'm sorry. I was slouching.
Oh, and Yasmin says hi to. Hi, Yasmin. We love you too. Hope you enjoy the show. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So basically, this fake monster that they made and put in the water has kind of helped with the skeptics saying, "Oh, it's it's legend. It's people hoaxing other people." But the fact remains, however, that the creature is unique amongst its peers, and maybe a modern link to a long tradition of loch monster encounters, which have plagued freshwater bodies throughout the British Isles. So, what's your thought on this here, Les? I mean, we're kind of cruising through on Loch Ock, and there's a reported lake monster. The fact that these lochs all connect, that's one of the things people got to understand, is all the lochs in Scotland that we're going to discuss tonight actually connect to each other.
Right.
But yet the monsters reported are kind of different in description and...
Right. I would think that they would all be related in some way, shape. If this creature does exist and it's not just your typical folklore, I would assume that they would all be somehow related. There might be subspecies, but I would imagine the dominant species would be similar. But like some of them are the plesiosaur-looking dinosaur-like, and then the other ones are serpentine in body, similar to the plesiosaur, but the dog head or the horse head with the mane and all that stuff. It's almost kind of reminds me of like the different variations of dragons, if you will, like the luck dragon with the dog face, like the never-ending story. I believe the Chinese culture has a luck dragon that is the dog face kind of dragon. So maybe it's just different variations in the lake monster creatures, because in one of the topics I'm going to talk about later, a lot of ancient civilizations believe that the world kind of worked on a balance where like what is above is so below. Like if it's on land, there's also a mirrored creature, a duplicate kind of creature in the sea. You know what I mean? So maybe the dragons are out of water and these things are in water. I don't know. Maybe it has to do with folklore. I don't know. But I would imagine if such a creature does exist, that it would have a dominant species, and there could be subspecies or slightly variated evolutionary traits that some of these subspecies may differ slightly.
Spit it out there, stuttery.
Anyway, what are your thoughts?
I don't have any. No. If you kind of think back, I think we discussed this, probably back with the Jersey Devil, episode, and I believe even the past Lake Monster episode. We try to put a name to something. So if I see something that it's the, in paranormal, it's the matrixing, where your brain tries to create what you're seeing, even though it might be some shadows and some grass, and the way the light hits it, it looks like a face.
Right,
Because your
right.
brain tries to make it something you recognize.
Pareidolia, Pareidola.
Pareidolia is part of
Yeah,
that, where you see like the face on the moon and stuff like that, where it's really just a rock, but the way the shadow and the light and stuff like
right.
that is, it kind
Crater
of gives it
depression.
eyes and a mouth.
Yeah, or what are they? Asteroid craters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I can see it. Go ahead. Go on. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, because the descriptions of, even, not getting into Loch Ness, but even the descriptions of Loch Ness have changed over the years. Like, if you
Right.
go back and look at the original 700 AD story, it was serpentine. It
Right.
was, but their description would fit what they understood.
Right. Right.
They wouldn't know what a plesiosaur was at that point unless they had caught one, which,
Right. Right.
according to science, they were extinct by that point.
Right.
So I think it's a point of reference, dog head, horse head.
Right.
You
They kind of
know,
are
hor-
similar in the sense of the elongated snout and
yeah,
eye placement and such. You know. Yeah, no, I think you're right because and when you see the long neck and the the humps that go through the water and stuff, the only thing that you could closely associate that with would be a serpent or a snake or something like that. You know what I mean? So no, I see what you're saying. That makes sense because there are
yeah. So I
actually
mean,
a lot of the things, a lot of the stories that I was researching is there's a lot of written reports of these lake monsters and stuff that date back to the 14 and 1500s and older.
mhm.
So
Yeah, I mean,
go
the
ahead.
original Loch Ness story comes from a Christian missionary back in like 756, 752, somewhere in that era.
Hmm.
So that's, I mean, and of course, again, that's, reference point and stuff like that of what they saw or what they understand of what they saw,
Right.
you know, but it does date back, pretty much almost 2,000 years now that you have some kind of legend or story that goes along with these waterways in the Highlands.
Right.
So the next lock we're going to head to, unless you have anything else to add to
No,
Loch
no,
Ock
no, no. Let's
or
go with
Oak
the next
or
lock.
Omach, or I think Gaelic it's Omach. I'm not 100% sure.
I have no freaking.
But yeah, you don't come to us for correct pronunciations of places that none of us are ever going to go.
True that.
So Loch Locke Loch Loke Loch
Yeah,
Loch.
one of
I
them.
don't know.
Lock Locky. It looks like I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it's Loch, but with a Y.
Lochy. Lock Locky. Sounds like it could be Lock Locky. So we'll
That's
go with Lock Locky.
Yeah, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Again, it's a freshwater loch, of course. Now this one's almost 10 miles long.
Hmm.
Uh, surface area of 6.2 square miles. Average depth is 230 foot, and the max depth recorded is 531 feet. So that's a
Right.
pretty
That's
deep
big.
body of water.
Yeah, that's deep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's located 10 miles southwest of the Loch Ness as well, along the Great Glen. The loch's over 9 miles long, like Chad said, with an average width of about 0.6 miles. The river Lochie flows from its southwestern end, while the Caledonian Canal links to the northeastern extent to Loch Ock. Oik, whatever the one we were just talking about. I don't know. Why the hell is my mouse not working? I'm sorry. This thing is starting to drive me nuts. But anyways, the folklore tales mention a supernatural being called the river horse, which was said to emerge from the lake and assume a horse's shape before feeding on the loch's banks. So the river horse was also known as the Lord of the Lake and the Water King, and would overturn boats and entice mares from their pastures. Another tradition was that of the river bull, a gentle, harmless creature who would emerge from the lake into the pastures of cows. Now, Lizzie is a cryptid from Loch Lochy, Scotland, and it's said to closely resemble the famous Loch Ness monster. And that's kind of weird, like with the river bull, the river horse. That's what a lot of people used to call manatees in Florida, like when they were, I guess, with
sea cows.
Yeah, sea cows
Yeah.
and whatnot, and they would say that freshwater dolphins and manatees and stuff like that would assume the form of women and stuff and lure men into the waters and stuff like that. So there, that was what was thought to be folklore. Sorry, what was thought to be folklore, which actually ended up being a legitimate creature. So you never know, there could be some validity to this.
Oh yeah, and you got to realize Lizzie's first sighting actually was in 1929, and it was cited by people of repute. It was two game wardens, and you got to realize that's a full 4 years before the first international claim about a Nessie encounter. So this is 4 years before Nessie becomes, internationally known. Like I said, it was by two game wardens, and they were out spotting, and they believed what they were looking at was just a large fallen tree in the water.
Right.
And as they got closer, they looked through a telescope, and they realized it didn't really look like a fallen tree. And then as they got closer, it actually started to swim, and they watched it swim for about a mile before it submerged back into the depths of the loch.
Right.
Now, in 1993, the Fort Augustus Abbey and Chronicle the many sightings and reports that had come in. I don't know if the monks were writing a book about it or just were keeping the folklore and history of the area alive. Then you get into the 1960s. There was a caravan staying near Glen Fintig. That's evidently a town or an area near this. But the Robinson family and 9 other witnesses spotted what they thought was a large standing wave in the center of the loch. And much to their amazement, the wave actually started moving. And they viewed the animal through binoculars. And now, of course, this is from a distance. They're estimating 30 to 40 foot, which I don't think humans have great perception on that when it comes to estimating size. Well, ladies, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'll go with that one. No, but I know what you're saying, because especially like with Bigfoot and stuff like that, when people say, oh, it was this many feet tall and it was this and that, your perspective changes depending on where you are in relation to the creature. It's if you're down lower and it's up higher, you have that forced perspective that it's going to look or appear larger than you are. Do you ever go driving around at night and you go down in a little dip and you're coming up a hill and the moon looks gigantic? Then you get to the top of the hill and it's like little teeny tiny. It's forced perspective. It's all dependent on the angle that you're standing. If you have nothing to kind of use as a size variant, like if there were a tree next to it or something like that you could actually go out and measure. And then you also have the range of the depth of field of how far are you away from it. So you're right, for somebody to stand there and say, oh, well, You know, I was along the shore. It was 40 feet long. I'm telling you. Well, really? It could have been a lot bigger or a hell of a lot smaller, depending on where you were in relation
Yeah.
to it.
And out of the 9 witnesses, I mean, how many were women? Because for a man, it was 30 or 40 foot, and all the women are like,
Now,
it was probably about 10 to it was about 10 to 11 foot at best, you know.
Yeah.
But to kind of give a description of, you know, coloration and stuff like that, they said it was darker at the spine, the upper middle of the back, and it kind of got paler as you got close to the underbelly. You know, they actually claimed that this sighting, they actually claimed that the beasts actually started rolling over in the water and exposing, as it exposed itself, they saw a huge flipper before it disappeared back into the lock. So now you not only have a 30 to 40 foot, you know, in length lock monster, but now it's also doing Shamu-like tricks in the middle of the lock for people to watch, you know. So it's an interesting report. Like I said, it was a caravan. If anybody understands what I mean by caravan, it was probably
gypsies.
You know, more or less gypsies. I didn't want to be racially offensive or whatever they consider that, an ethnicity or whatever. But, you know, now in 75, there was a woman and her husband. They were staying at one of the nearby hotels. And, yeah, they were watching the lock, and it was relatively calm. And then they saw, you know, a large black, you know, object moving through the water. Of course, when she goes to get her camera to snap a photo, it's gone. Now, the interesting thing is the object creating the wave and the wake is gone, but the wake and wave is visible in her photo.
So there was physically something there to make that happen. She just didn't catch the actual creature or the thing that made it.
Yeah, she was maybe a second behind where she needed to be and taking that photo. So yeah, it's an actual photo of a wake, which if you look at a lot of the other lake monsters and stuff, you know, throughout the world, a lot of times the best evidence that they can provide is these unknown reasoned wakes coming through the, you know, lakes and stuff like that. So I mean, it does lend some, you know, credibility to the possibility. In 1996, while fishing, guy was out fishing for pike. So imagine this: you're out fishing for pike.
Right
now, pike put up a decent amount of fight when you're fishing for him. You know, he's casting, and you know, all of a sudden, he feels his bait get pulled. And not only you got a picture, and basically even from his description, that scene in Jaws where they have the 2 barrels in Jaws in the shark, and they have it tied off to the 2 cleats at the back of the boat, and it starts going away from them, and it's dragging the orca behind it. He basically, this is his description of what happened to him. He was, you know, I'm actually going to read his, you know, quoted description. I knew immediately it wasn't a pike with that ferocity. I had to stop the line, but when I did, the power started to drag the boat behind it. All the time, I'm thinking it was like the scene from Jaws. Fortunately, my line and rod snapped, and that was the end of it. I have no idea what it was, but it was a lot bigger than a pike. He estimated
that was beautifully read. By the way, you did a great job on that.
Thank you. I actually got all the words in that time, I think. He actually described it as being, you know, about 18 foot long. Okay, you know, 40 foot, 18 foot. Again, we're going back into, you know, comparisons. But he said,
but I would imagine at that they're going to be a lot closer to it when you're fishing. You know what I mean? So you're going to have a better interpretation of the size.
And you also probably have boats out in that lock and stuff as reference points to what 18 foot would look like.
Yeah.
So, but he said it was roughly the shape of an overturned like rowboat, which again would go back to that classic plesiosaur look where the
that
body
barrel
is,
body. Yeah.
Yep. So when it's on top of the water, it would kind of just be sloped down like what would appear to be an overturned rowboat.
Right, right. Well, cryptozoologist Cameron Turner had a massive contact with an object near Speen Bridge, where their first reported sighting took place. The contact was estimated as being between 18 and 20 feet in length. So again, it's similar to whatchamacallit, the one that you had just talked about, that the Mr. Stevenson had seen. But I totally lost track of where I was going. Yeah, but it was moving at a depth of 160 feet below the surface, which, again, how could you figure that? Unless you had like some kind of a sonar. But anyways,
I believe, yeah, his expedition had sonar.
Oh, well then, okay, when that would give you an approximate depth. So, but approximately 2 minutes later, after the boat sharply turned starboard in order to pursue the contact, a second contact was made, this time at a depth of 200 feet. As the boat approached the center of the loch above an abysmal trench, which is reportedly over 300 feet deep, the object then disappeared. So did it go down and hide in some kind of underground cavern, or, where did it go to hide? There's probably a million different places to go. But anyways, Cameron returned to the loch in September in 1977. He hired a boat from the family of the Alistair Stevenson, the previous people, the same man who had the 1996 encounter. Nearest the north end of the loch, close to Letter Finlay, the same place that they had made contact with an unknown object during the previous expedition, the team had another strong contact, this time approximately 270 feet down into the loch. During the 3 minutes the team managed to follow the contact, they were able to get clear pictures, which is interesting. I wish we could bring up the pictures for you guys, but unfortunately we're not able to do it with the software right now. But they got it on the sonar screen as well. They got pictures of the sonar screen, and then shortly after the returned to the same area and found nothing. This is usually how it goes. The only other strange readings they obtained during the trip was sonar hits of over 2,000 feet deep, which appeared to be holes at the bottom of the loch. Something never reported before and later confirmed by the manager of the boat rental firm, who had also gotten strange readings in the past, showing deep holes in the bottom of the loch. If this is true, it makes Loch Lochy by far the deepest inland lake in Europe. But, again, most of these lochs, they're in these trenches, and I mean, you really don't know how deep they go.
Well, that's also, that's always one of the things that a lot of, as sonar equipment improves and stuff like that, the depths have changed over the years. The current depth and the actual depths have varied, over the years. I mean, you've seen it with Loch Ness, I mean, and even Loch Ness, they've reported that there are, trenches in there that the sonar isn't necessarily giving them a deep enough reading. It's saying it's over 700 feet deep in some spots, almost 900 in others. Somebody had brought up on the messages. I'm sorry, folks, I'm actually not seeing them tonight. I actually have my phone open so I can see what you guys are saying. A sturgeon, is definitely, something, a possibility in a lot of these accounts. Giant catfish. I mean, you watch that show, what is it, River Monsters? Mm-hmm. And you see this guy pulling out, I never pictured fish, freshwater fish getting this big. And all of a sudden this guy's pulling out a fish the size of me, out of an area where, there's not supposed to be fish that size. Right. So yeah, definitely that is a possibility for a lot of these sightings, especially, I think, one of the ones we had talked about before was the Tahoe Tessie on our previous episode. And that was one of the things that, we had kind of come to the conclusion of. It sounded like a sturgeon. It wasn't like a sturgeon. Ooh!
Hey.
But yeah, definitely, I think some known species definitely could be misidentified in these areas,
Right.
just because of the tremendous size of, a fish that maybe is normally, 4 foot is all of a sudden growing to 8 to 9 to 10 foot. So
Right.
definitely it could be something, a known species that's just misidentified in those areas.
Right. That's true. Yeah, because I mean, with the depth and some of the size of these locks, I mean, there's plenty of space. Because like they like when you go to a fish shop, they say, oh, the fish will grow to the size of your tank. Well, if you have these massive, deep, wide locks, you know what I mean. Who knows what sizes of the fish are? At the deeper depths. And sturgeon, if I'm remember correctly, they're deep water fish. They don't necessarily stay towards the top of the water, like the water surface. So I mean, you're getting hits on these sonar. I mean, maybe some of them are 10 feet or more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You never know. I know some of them get really, really big.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is like the arguments have always come in. Oh, these locks don't have enough food to support a large, creature living in them.
Right.
And then a couple of years ago, National Geographic did a study. I know this was done on Loch Ness, but they did a study on the fish of Loch Ness and the amount of available food. I mean, they based it off of the thought of a large predatory, creature living in there.
Right.
And basically they found, even though reported for years, oh, there's not enough, not enough. And when they did this recent study, they actually found that there is plenty of fish and other food sources in these locks.
Right.
You do have the fish migrating to spawn and stuff like that. So there's definitely a food source for something big. And even if it's a known fish, like we're saying, it grew bigger than normal. The water's deep. There's so many, there's, the old folklore of, oh, there's, tunnel ways out to the ocean from, Loch Ness and, stuff like that. I mean, and you also have other animals, living on the land that, if you had a large predatory fish, an alligator gar or something like that. I don't know exactly what alligator gars eat. I just know they look scary.
Yeah.
I could imagine they could eat, ducks and birds and small animals that would wander up to the water's edge.
Oh yeah, I was just watching a video on Facebook, and I want to say it was a tar pin or something like that. I'm not exactly sure on the name.
Pretty sure that's what it is.
They were just going up and sucking these like seagulls and stuff down in the, like literally one bite, these birds were gone. And so you never know. I mean, if something gets big enough and capable, I'm sure it would take down whatever it can. I mean, whatever food source is available. Because
definitely
that River Monsters show that you're talking about, a lot of the stories that the host and the fisherman is going after, were saying that they were dragging kids down or they were dragging people down under the water. So, you know what I mean? Could be a very large fish or a dinosaur.
I would like to believe it's a dinosaur, but I know realistically it's probably just a big fish.
It's a dinosaur. Anyways, let's talk about something else now. What's the next topic? What are some of these based off of folklore and I guess eyewitness description? Let's talk about some of the not necessarily Nessie, but the other what's the word I'm looking for? I guess the other creatures, the folklore, the other folklore creatures.
So, Scottish folklore has a lot about water horses or lake monsters. So they have the Kelpies. It's a supernatural water horse that is said to haunt, Scotland's lochs and rivers. And the Kelpie will appear to victims as a lost dark gray or white pony, but could be identified by its constant dripping mane. so it's constantly dripping water.
Right.
It entices people to ride it on its back. Of course, it's a horse. You ride it on its back.
Right.
But as they get on and they start to ride, the horse veers out into the water and basically drowns them. It takes them to their watery grave. Then you have the Selkie, which is a mystical creature said to transform itself from a seal to human form and back again. Now this, legends of the Selkies originate in the Shetland Islands and Orkney. And basically,
I was waiting for you to say that word.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and basically, Selkie is just the Scottish, a version of the Scottish word for seal.
Right.
In tradition, the seal and stuff like that would be more to do with the pick. People go look that up. Pick. It's an actual group of people, but they, for some reason, had a group of pick that were into seals and stuff like that. So I guess they like their Selkies. When I was a kid, I used to have a little thing I used to carry around. I called my Selkie, which had nothing to do with the Scottish folklore. I just used to sit there and nudge it between my fingers. But that's a completely different therapy session. And tales abound of a man who found a beautiful Selkie sunbathing on a beach and stole her skin and forced her to become his wife and bear his children, only for her to find the skin years later and escape back to the seal from this form and back to the sea.
Lovely.
That's a very interesting folklore story.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Yeah, well, there's all different kinds. I mean, especially while doing the research, the Kelpie and the Selkies are the more commonly known creatures of folklore from that area. But there's so many different stories and creatures out there. It just makes you kind of scratch your head and wonder, with all these different stories, are they really just stories to scare children, or are they really seeing something? I want to believe that there is maybe not like a horse-faced or a dog-faced plesiosaur, but I would love to think that there would be a plesiosaur-esque creature that survived somehow throughout all these millions of years and would still be around, kind of like the Michaelia Mbembe, which we will talk about in another show. It's supposed to be like a brontosaurus or like an apatosaurus that's still in the that huge lake in the Congo.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
I mean, I as a child was a big dinosaur nut, and yeah, for me, for I don't know if anybody remembers the movie Baby. It came out in like 1984. It was basically the one who stops rivers. But it was the baby of the group that they had killed off and stuff like that. I mean, to me, that is like, I would love for Loch Ness Monster, for Lizzie, for all these lake monsters to be real and to be a plesiosaur.
Or a brontosaurus or something.
That's I think that's the kid in all of us kind of wants them to be the dinosaur, the thing that we were told for years. I think it's part rebellion and it's part our want for our childhood to be like dinosaurs to still be real.
Right.
And it's also rebellion because science says it's not possible.
Yep. It's so funny that you brought that movie up because a couple years ago, Leslie got it for me for Christmas on Blu-ray. And it's kind of like the Harry and the Hendersons of the lake monster realm, if you will, but a lot less lacking in the special effects in the special effects world. It was horrible. Good movie, but the creatures were just horrible.
As a kid, that was a great movie.
Oh God, yeah, yeah, I love that movie. My daughter is so into dinosaurs, and she actually tells everybody she wants to be a paleontologist. And when she was really little, I tried to get her to watch that movie, and she just didn't get into it. But now that she's a little bit older, and now that you've kind of sparked that back into my memory bank, there, I'm going to have her watch that. So I think she'd really enjoy it. So now that we talked about Scotland and the locks around the Scottish Isle, let's go to another relatively close island in that part of the world, and we're going to go to Ireland and talk about some of the lake monsters that have been reported there. So for our next monstrous location, we venture to Ireland, and for that, I'm going to reiterate some passages from Peter Costello's book titled "In Search of Lake Monsters." It's old. This copy anyway is old. It's from like the 1970s, and I think it's comical. I'll share with you guys out there. They don't make books like this anymore, where they have full color cigarette ads in a black and white printed book. But I'm going to read some excerpts from that. Huh?
I just love how the ad is like, "Come on, have a cigarette."
Yeah,
you know, like
it's so funny. And there's another one on the reverse side of that ad with some dude in a locker room. Yeah, it's so funny. Oh, you would
have
not
a lucky
get
strike.
Yeah, yeah. You couldn't get away with that kind of advertising now. Geez. But yeah, I'm going to read some excerpts from his book there, and it's a good book, and there's a lot of stories throughout that. So if you ever find a copy on eBay or something like that, or maybe I don't even know if it's in print production anymore, it's actually categorized as a cult. for I didn't realize that before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, really.
That's even an old term. Like,
yeah, it's an occult book. It's for the devil. But anyways, it is a good book if you want to read more about some of the different lake monsters and stuff, because they have the folklore legends and stories and stuff throughout it. So it's pretty cool. But I'm just going to read some parts of the a couple different creatures that have been purported in Ireland. So like in Ireland, as in ancient Greece, animals, like I was saying before, were supposed to have their counterparts on other spheres, like Pegasus on Olympus. There's the water horse and the sea waves. The country people supposed that this world was reduplicated underwater, if you will. They told stories of cows, bulls, and dogs from that other world. Sometimes these were even captured. Water horses came out of lakes and were broke to the plow. And, strange cows in the briars where poor families milked them, were said to have come up from pastures underwater. But besides the harmless creatures, true monsters called variously pious, pace, or alfeists haunted some lakes. And St. Patrick, when he banished the snakes out of Ireland, is said to have chained the most terrible, such as the one in Lough or Lough Allen, to lake bottoms, allowing them to appear only every 7 years. Such legends has easily become localized, and people will soon claim to have seen huge animals jumping in neighboring lakes. But a lot of the descriptions of the Peist or Piest, I don't know how you want to pronounce it, is very similar to the what is it? The Kelpie, like was the Kelpie the horse face, or I guess the horse face water horse, if you will.
Yeah.
Part of the descriptions were kind of like that, and I guess that's why they were saying, on the duplicated or reduplicated world, these creatures had similar characteristics to the ones on land, which is why they would try and capture them and bring them on, like the horse, the cow, and the dog.
Could you imagine getting horrible milk from a sea cow?
Oh God, yeah, that would be pretty. Like salty milk, salty sea milk.
Yeah, it's all salty.
I could say something, but I will just not say it.
Look, it's fat out of Marlon Brando's liposuction.
Oh, this guy ate a lot of pork.
Oh, it's all salty.
Another of the legendary animals said to haunt Irish lakes is the puka. The usual form of this creature is that of a large black dog or sometimes a horse, again with the dog and horse. Nowadays, the puka is merely a story to frighten children. Many who so use it have no idea of its origins even. Kevin Doniger of the Irish Folklore Commission was told by an old man in the Wicklow Hills area that, in fact, the puka was the same as the each usage, which I'm butchering that pronunciation. I know I am, but I guess it's another old world term for this puka creature. The puka has given its name to many places in Ireland, such as Lissapuka and Rathpuka. The best known of these places is Poolapuka, the Puka's Pool in Wicklow. Before the valley there was flooded to make a reservoir for Dublin, the river Liffey flowed over a ledge into the deep pool where the puka was said to lurk, ready to waylay unwary travelers at night. So it stalked its victims at night. So, I mean, they all kind of have, all these stories kind of have the same outcome where it's a monster waiting in the dark to catch a unwary traveler or somebody who's not paying attention, or children. So is it just a means to keep people away from somewhere that people don't want people to go? Is it just to scare kids so they go to bed at night? I don't know. Or not go to bed at night in most cases. It's just interesting how a lot of the folklore and a lot of the sightings and everything are so prevalent throughout the world. But then again, if you think about it, especially, throughout the last, couple hundred years, so many people from all over the world migrated, especially to America. And, a lot like the Irish, the Italians or whatever, they would all pretty much stay in their groups.
Ethnic group.
Yeah, exactly. So they're,
I don't think they necessarily did it on purpose. I think they were just kind of forced into that.
Kind of, yeah. And I mean, if you think about it too, I mean, you come here, you don't really speak English well, you don't know anybody around here, you're going to flock to the people that understand you, and along with them flock together, exactly. So, and along with that, as all these different ethnic groups came, traveled around the world, they took with them their folklore and their legends and their tales. So, you move to a new area, you're hanging out, and all of a sudden you see something odd in the water. You say, well, I remember a story from back home that was this. So now it's here. So is it really creatures all over the world that you could say, well, there's stories all over the world, so it has to have some validity, or is it just misidentified things and it was categorized by folklore that was brought over from different countries with different ethnic groups?
One thing I would love to know, and I would find interesting, would be, how certain dinosaur skeletons are only found in certain parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a thing of like these lake monsters and stuff like that? Is it early discoveries because of running water and stuff like that, cleaning away silt and dirt, clearing away skeletons of things like plesiosaurs, mosasaurs, and stuff like that, and it's actually unearthing them? Mm-hmm. People back then wouldn't have kept the bones. I mean, archaeology really only started, preserving bones and stuff like that turn of the last century. So 700, AD, water washes a skeleton to the, top of the surface, or bones to the top of the surface. And, then they didn't know, okay, this layer of dirt is 1,000 years from this time to this time. This layer of dirt is this, time frame. Right. If we're seeing it, it must have just died within the last couple of years. They didn't understand, the process of fossilization.
Mm-hmm.
So where they may be seeing something like a skeleton of a mosasaur, a plesiosaur, a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I mean, this is where some of the world's cultures actually got their
Dragons and stuff.
legends from. The griffin and stuff like that in Greek mythology and stuff like that is said to have been a skeleton that people had seen traveling, towards India and then brought it back in a folklore story. So were they actually seeing, fossilized remains that they were, not understanding the process of, well, we bury our dead so far down in the ground. If they come back, let's look at it. If they come back, they're a monster.
Right.
And you're talking about cultures that have, a great long history of, the underworld, the, above and below, you have Baller, Baller's the demon king of Ireland. You have, you go to Ireland, you have like Finn McCoolin. You have all these legends. I mean, Finn McCoolin, basically threw a stone from Ireland into the ocean and created the Isle of Man. So, not that I believe that legend's true. It's just an interesting legend. But, so we're talking about cultures that don't have reference points. So, thousands of years ago, I see a plesiosaur thing. I believe it just died within the last couple of years. Well, it's by the water, so it must have been a water creature because I see fish that, get washed up onto the shore and then they die, and therefore this must have been in the loch and washed up on shore and died.
Right, right.
So, so that's my thought on it. Just kind of a, culturally not understanding what they're seeing. So therefore, maybe it is something that is, legend, but it's actually just a legend of found fossils that they believe has to be real.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's a theory. It's been shown in other cultures that that's kind of where some legends have come from.
Right.
I'd like to thank my co-host Les for doing another great show here tonight. Explorers wants to thank the audience. You guys have been coming in and out tonight watching. Next episode is actually a very special episode. I think, Les, you're going to cover that part and give them a kind of a synopsis on that. So, again, I'd like to thank the audience for coming along. Les, anything you want to say, bro?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, as always, for being along my side here with this little show that we're putting on. And thank you, everybody out there that listened. We actually, I was watching the live broadcast preview stats, and we had our highest number of live viewers tonight, so I'm really excited about that. We had some great interaction in the message boards there. This is very, very good, and thank you all for participating and watching and talking and whatnot. We greatly appreciate that. You have no idea. But like Chad was saying, our next show is going to be an All Hallows Eve special. And please remember, it will be Monday night at 8 p.m. It's a different day, just like today. Usually we do our show Tuesday nights at 9:30, and we're trying some different nights to see what is going to kind of give the best results, because we want to be able to, bring the show to everybody when you're available so you could all enjoy it as much as we do. But again, it's going to be All Hallows Eve special Monday night at 8 p.m. We are going to talk about more traditional monsters like vampires, witches, and werewolves, and some of the folklore and history that they have, as well as modern day accounts on the subjects. You could reach us, like we said before. You could reach us at www.explorersgroup.com. That's our brand new website that we're really excited and proud about. So we'd like for everybody to go in there. And if you don't mind, just leaving a message on the homepage. We have an area there that's linked to Facebook, and you could leave us a message. So we'd all really appreciate that. And you could find that at facebook.com/Xplorers. You could check us out there on the website, and also follow us at Explorers Group on Twitter. And also from our website, if you click on any one of our live shows, we always put our live shows up there, and we have some evidence up there. But if you click on the live shows, it'll give you a link to our YouTube channel. And we would really, really appreciate if you guys could go out there and subscribe to our channel. We're going to be trying to put a lot more information out there. We're going to start to try and do webisodes. We're hoping the 2017-2018 season is going to provide more opportunities for us to do investigations, both paranormal as well as cryptozoological. We have a Bigfoot outing that we're planning on doing. It's going to be private. It's not open to the public, unfortunately, but we're gonna try and film it so that way we can put something together for you guys. It's been a hot spot in my area of Carbon County for quite some time, and I'm really excited to kind of get this underway. So we want you guys to come along with us while we're out there. If we could do anything live, we will, but we will compile everything into a webisode that we'll put on our YouTube channel. And Chad, you want to talk about that place down in Virginia that we want to get into really quick before we sign off?
I don't want to give out the location yet, but there is a very large,
two very large places, actually.
Yeah, two very large places. One is over 20,000 square foot and possibly about 32 rooms. The other one is bigger than that, and we don't want to release any information quite yet, and we probably won't give you guys exact dates on when we're doing it, because honestly, we don't want anybody messing with our investigations.
Yeah.
One thing I would tell folks, it is the Halloween season. There are a lot of Facebook paranormal groups out there. I know a couple, one of them that's doing a very big event on Sunday. It's called Star City Paranormal. They're investigating in Roanoke, Virginia. They're doing a very large building. Maybe something people would be interested in checking out. I know Pennhurst, I believe, has a Friday night Facebook investigation. Now, I'm not sure that's going to be completely live on Facebook, but they will have some investigations going on there that'll be going live to Facebook. So there's a lot of stuff out there. Please don't get fooled by just because it says it's a paranormal investigation doesn't mean the person actually knows what they're doing or isn't just faking stuff to give you a Halloween frightening weekend.
Right.
But choose your mediums that you consume wisely. But that's all I really have to say. I'm so hungry. I got done training and came and did the show, so I'm hungry.
All right. Well, on that note, thank you again, everybody, so much. Chad, thank you, buddy. I always love doing this with you, my friend. So we will see everybody Monday night at 8 o'clock. Be there for the All Hallows Eve special. We'll see you then. Take care, everybody. Good night.
Bye.